council. That council can be responsible, and they will also be included as part of the council. So they have that power. That's one of the first exercise of power that they usually exercise and they usually have. And why it's very important for trustees of associations and NGOs to be very aware of their responsibility under the law is because we have a new regime in Nigeria such that the laws had to be changed because it was realized that a lot of NGOs were being used for money laundering activities, and some of them were being also used for terrorism activities. So the government started noticing that this is an area that criminals are beginning to use to commit fraud and commit crimes in the country. So they had to tighten our laws. And also the Financial Action Task Force in its global guidance on non-profit organizations also mentioned this fact that a lot of NGOs are being used for fraud and money laundering. And I can give you a practical example. There was a transaction I once did on behalf of a client, and we were buying a property from a top bank executive. And when it was time for us to make payments, and the money we're talking about, please can we mute ourselves if we are not talking, please? Alaja Alioluwafoye and Alaja Akani, please can we mute ourselves so that your noise from the background doesn't distract us. So the person selling the property, this bank executive, asked our client to make payments into a religious organization's account. I found it very strange. And I told our client that no, we can't do it. And it's one of the top religious organizations in Nigeria because the bank executive was one of their top clerics. So if that transaction had sailed through and we had agreed, that would be a form of money laundering because obviously the funds wasn't meant to be donation to the organization, but it was just a way to receive funds so that there will be no traces. So if the government or the Financial Crimes Commission try to investigate money laundering and they find out that an association received funds in their account, which was not a donor fund, but it was from a transaction, the trustees can be held responsible for that. And another issue why it's also important for us to also know. Alaja Farm, please, can you mute yourself? Your background from the